G'day and welcome to the MacBack Podcast.
We're back.
My name's Jamie Kinner, and to my left this week in order of the biggest comedy fan on the panel, it's my little brother Joe. How are you, Joe boy?
Jake, I'm going fantastic, and there's nothing I love more than comedy, and it's WA comedy at that.
And to my right, coming in 6'1", as he does each and every week, is the baby brother of the pack, who we call Junior Boy. Junior Boy, how are you?
I like a giggle, I like a laugh, and I love a story, and these three people have them all.
We got a huge little special episode of the MacBack Podcast
Very
coming
special.
to your ear holes this week. We're chatting. It's WA Comedy Week coming up.
Baby, yeah, it is.
November 7 all the way through to November 13.
And who we got on tonight?
We've got some fantastic acts performing throughout those dates, and we've been fortunate enough to get them on the podcast this week. We've got Colin Ebsworth from Ebsworth Tonight. We have Frankie Rowsthorn from Peter Rowsthorn, and we also have Joe White. It's a massive ep. Let's get into it. Boys.
Brother Bingo.
How are we all? Are we all well?
It's good to be here. I'm very excited for tonight.
Very excited. And why is that?
We love our comedy.
Of course, we do.
We see the International
Comedy.
Comedy Festival whenever it comes to Perth.
That's it.
But this week we were approached by Colin Ebsworth, who is the managing director, the program director
yes.
at WA Comedy Week.
That's it.
Yes.
He got in contact and said, boys, you know what? Let's chat some comedy.
Let's do it, yeah.
And
We dabble in comedy occasionally on the podcast.
We laugh.
We try. And he reached out and went, you know what? We've got some fantastic comedians who are going to be performing between November 7th all the way through to November 13th. And we'd love to basically give you boys the opportunity to have a chat with these guys and
Fantastic.
girls.
Yes.
So we've got Colin Ebsworth.
Yep.
We also have Frankie Rowsthorn.
Massive, yes.
And we also have
Joe White.
Joe White. the
Yes, a
man.
fantastic bunch of comedians. Very excited to chat with them.
So the next, 40 odd minutes is basically us just chatting with these absolute legends. And make sure that you go and get your tickets wherever Colin said you can get your tickets from.
Let's find out.
Alrighty, boys. A very big pleasure to have Mr. Colin Ebsworth join us today. He's the program director for the WA Comedy Week.
That's right.
That's taking place in November.
Yes, sir.
Through the 7th all the way through to the 13th of November. Cole, how are you, mate?
I am good. Thanks for having me on, boys.
Absolute pleasure.
Always love to rep WA in a positive light that isn't, Ben Cousins or Clive Palmer, so this is great.
Yes. So you're the program director for WA Comedy Week. Can you run us through a bit, what it is, where it is, some of the big names who are coming down to perform?
Oh, if only I had something in front of me that I could read off. No, I'm just kidding. No, boys. So basically me and another guy, Ronan Freeburner, an incredible creative. He's the guy behind RotoFest and Free Royale, and I'm going to tell you the story about Goon and Nugs in a second, but he's put on some of the biggest events in the Perth. And we teamed up after putting on, years worth of shows. We've been doing stand-up and in the comedy scene for like 13 years now, and we were just like, how do you frame it? We were a bit fucking tired of Melbourne getting all the attention. So we just went, you know what? WA has so many incredible people coming out of here. I mean, per capita, it's just insane. So we went, hey, let's put on a festival that's just that. So we picked a week, November, thought it's a really nice time in between Fringe and the festivals, and the sun's coming out. And I just figured, let's go for it. And we did, and it's just blowing up. So we've got Rove, Peter Rowsthorn from Kath and Kim, Janelle Koenig's massive acts. We've got all the best new local established talent across stand-up, cabaret, burlesque, improv, musical comedy, variety, like absolutely everything. We've got jam-packed about 30 events over this week. And somehow, don't ask me how, this is more of a Ronan question, but we've got ABC on board. They're going to be doing their comedy debates. Channel 10 is on board. And we want to blow this thing up. So get behind it. If we can make this thing go half as big as we know it has the potential to, then this thing will be a Melbourne Comedy Festival, but just for WA. And we won't have to share any of our secrets, our coffee or any of our beer, which is the way it should be.
Nice. We like the sound of that. You're selling yourself short. You've got a show as well, I believe. What goes into that?
It's called Ebsworth Tonight. So this is a talk show that I've been working on for about 3.5 years now. So I ended up starting just this little thing. I used to do like little monologue jokes. I don't know if you boys are across, late night talk shows, but obviously we grew up with Rove and and I just idolized the man. So I was like, hey, let's give that a crack. Let's do a dying medium that's been on for 50 years and see if I can get that started again. So look, I brought it back, and man, it has been a hell of a ride. We ended up with this crew of 20 to 30 people, this crazy massive shows, hundreds of people, and then we started putting stuff online now, and now we're hitting up. I think we just totaled like a couple of million views the other day just from all this stuff we're putting on, and it's just been insane. We've had like senators and mayors and Olympians and everyone on there in this like classic late night format, but with a lot of spice added to it, which is probably why Channel 10 refuses to call me back.
I love it. We love it.
There you go. I hear that this is actually running in front of a live audience at the Record Bite. What goes into making a good crowd for one of these shows?
Oh, mate, I tell you what, it is. It's tricky getting things started in Perth. I'll give you that much. And how do I frame this? There is a reason why a lot of the stuff you see on TV is very like across the board. Hey, how do we keep boomers happy and make them not want to, give up their super? Like, how do we keep people happy? So it's a lot of that kind of stuff. But, I just feel like young people, especially in our boat, I mean, when was the last time you boys watched TV, really?
Like free to wear is not a thing, hey?
Free to air is not a thing. Oh my God, I watch more OnlyFans. Look, we support local here. Everyone in high school named Kayla got to make money somehow. So we started this thing, and we just realized that young people want something genuine and they want something real, and the majority of the news that I get is from these kind of entertainment type programs. And we just went, you know what, let's just swing for the fence with this. And we put out news, we put out a current affairs, and some of this stuff just goes off. And don't get me wrong, it can be divisive or whatever, but it's definitely making waves. And some of the responses we've got from people, it's just like amazing. So to put on one of these shows, we've actually scaled it up. The first one took me a year to put together. The next one was we did 2 in a year, then 3 in a year, and now we're doing monthly shows. And to get one of these things together, we're booking months in advance. We get the whole crew together. We've got it down to like a fine art of how long it takes to get the entire set bumped in and everything, but it's still one of those crazy race to the buzzers every single time. I guarantee there's always something. I mean, the very first show we did at the Record Bar, back when it was in its little baby steps, the screen projector like fell down during the warm-up comic in front of like 300 people. It was just like, Jesus Christ. But it's one of those things, man. There's always something with it, but the crowd always walks out going like, that was amazing. How is this being made here? And it's great. And I do it with my beautiful bestie and co-host Sam Cribb, who is just one of the funniest guys. He's this 6'7" tall, just funny little fettuccine fuck, and he's just the best. He's just the best guy. But yeah, like I said, we've pulled off some really crazy stuff over the years, and I don't know, man. It's just a really cool project, and it's one of those things you boys will experience with the podcast. You get people going, oh, this is so cool, you guys are doing this, and you're like, yeah, but you got no idea how much work it is. But from the outside, oh baby, this is making money and it looks amazing and TV's calling any day. But on the back end, I'm like, motherfucker, I'm 30 and grey hair, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no one sees the tears in bed, do they?
Yeah, no one sees the tears in bed. Yeah, God, that's going to be on a bumper sticker somewhere.
And Colin, we couldn't help but resist but ask, what was the toughest crowd you've ever performed in front of? Whether it was for the show or just for stand-up?
It's not even a question. It is not even a question. And here's the thing, a lot of people are like hesitant to talk about this. I'll rail against it every day I can. The Rotary Club of WA. You motherfuckers owe me $400 for the worst gig I've ever done. Let me give you a bit of background, right? So I was like 3 years into stand-up, which in terms of career-wise is like nothing. I had no idea what I was doing, right?
Yep.
I get a call from a mate, and he was like, hey, I got a spot. I can't make it. Do you want to do this corporate gig? And corporate gigs are the fucking worst. They're the worst ever, right? Because it's everything that you would want in a stand-up comedy club they haven't got. So, I mean, I can't tell you. I've done corporates where I was standing outside of a pizza shop talking to the street with, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you do a corporate, it'll be like, someone will be like, oh, hey, we're doing a 500-person charity function for Chevron. Oh, let's get a stand-up act in between the CEO and, some weird musical performance to a place that's fully lit. Half the people aren't facing the right way. They're eating food. They're all in suits. And you're like, hey, do you guys... you guys remember the bell tower? Isn't that weird? Like, it sucks, man. But I'm doing this gig, and I realize now the friend was like, hey, I'm busy. He was just palming it off because he didn't want to do it. But I didn't realize this. Me and Pete Rowsthorn, like, we're friends now. He's a lovely guy. He's been incredible. But I didn't realize I was filling in for him. So I rock up to this 5-star, amazing corporate venue at one of like the ritziest places in the city, right? Everyone's in suits. I'm there wearing looking like an Ed Hardy fucking show model, like just in some farmer wants a wife button up, being like, hi, I'm a comedian guy. I go up there and I'm talking not even 10 minutes. It was everything I did was bombing. The first joke I did got a couple of laughs and groans, and I was like, man, that's like the lightest one. I don't know what. I used to do this bit where I was just like talking about, the terrorist, the anti-terrorist ads that came on the TV, and they were like, oh, if you see something, say something. And I just thought it was funny. Like, why are you worried about a terrorist coming to Perth? Like, what? Do you know what I mean? Like, they would get off the plane and just be like, oh shit, someone beat us to it. Like, what the hell is this? So I did that, and I get like a bunch of groans from these people, and I was just like, this is not going to go well. I have not got nearly enough material about Frenchies and expensive coffee in Netherlands to make this work. So I started doing that, and then I started doing crowd work with these people, because what you always do when stuff is bombing, go off script. So I do it, and I do this crowd work. I recognize a woman in the crowd who, oh my God, this is actually going to get me in trouble. But I used to work at a fish and chip shop, right? And she was one of the customers that came in. Mm-hmm. And I made some joke. In my mind, I was like my young little 20-year-old mind. I was being really innocuous. And I was like, oh, yeah, come around the back after the show and I'll give you some tartar sauce or something. Like, I thought it was just a dumb thing to be like, hey, you do it. But to them, it was like, oh, you just threatened to assault this woman. I tanked it so hard. And then I left and was like, and honestly, it really instilled in me a trauma. I was like, I'm never doing this again. And then on the plus side, and I tell you this quite candidly, no gig has ever been that bad. So there's like a baseline. There's a bottom. That was my 127 hours. And then you compare it to the talk show where people are like, hey, we're wearing merchandise with your face on it and stuff. And I'm like, this is better. This is probably better.
Yeah. Where were you guys at the Rotary Club? We needed you there.
Yeah, I know. So I tell you what, if they ever reach out for tickets, oh, mama, I will send them in, but I'll send them to the Sunday roast that we have. Sunday 13th at the Record Bar at 6:30 p.m.
Very nice. With the festival, we've had a look. There's obviously a lot of big acts there. Who would be your biggest recommendations for people to get around and see?
Mate, that is a really cool thing. There's a couple of really unique shows that we've programmed. What I would say is, specifically any female listeners, get behind the Funniest Femmes Gala. That is an amazing lineup. We've got famous Sharon, who's the face of WA tourism. Like, she's a huge act that tours all around the state, and a bunch of these incredible acts. Laura Davis is on that. She wrote for Mad as Hell and has done all these insane things. She's based out of Melbourne now, and I mean, her trajectory is just insane. She's going to be so massive. She was doing a script that got like, she was in discussions with Tina Fey at one point from like 30 Rock in the States to buy it, like just crazy stuff like that. The Sunday roasts will be a brand new format that will be so good. This is hosted by Mike G, who's this American guy, but he was based in WA for ages, and he obviously got his really honed his teeth over here, and he's one of the best. But this guy is brutal. He's on the 100 with Andy Lee. Yeah, so he'll be hosting that with just some absolute crushers of comedy. And Laura Davis will actually be on that one, and we've got her husband, James Knockasey, up. So I can't wait to see like the first ever roast battle between two married comedians in Perth. Like, that's going to be hectic. So it's roast battles, and then there's roasts about WA, and there's a bunch of secret stuff. Unfortunately, we tried our hardest, but we could not get Basil to come near that show, which is a shame. Because I really would have loved it, but City of Perth has been great to support the festival as much as they have. So we'll let it slide this time. Obviously, you got my show. I don't know how across TED Talks you guys are, like the TED Design Expo things, but there's this incredible show by Owen Merriman and Michael Gatt who do improvised TED Talks. So it's called Todd Talks, right? You get comedians up, they'll get a suggestion from the audience they've never heard before, have to prove a statement about that, so you'd be like, hey, penguins, and they'll be like, okay, cool, why penguins need to be killed or something like, and they'll get a bunch of slides they've never seen and props and stuff, and they have to wing a TED Talk, and the audience votes in it. It is so funny, you would not believe. Another killer, if you can even get tickets, is Janelle Koenig. She's 20 plus year veteran, one of the only Australians to be handpicked to go over to Last Comic Standing in the States when they did an international version. She'll be here doing her show One Night Band. And then, of course, my personal favorite, the Comedy Week Q&A. So that's the first event we're doing on the Monday. Peter Rowsthorn, Rode McManus, Janelle Koenig. You get to ask as many questions as you want. Because we just realized all these festivals and arts festivals and whatever, they always have workshops and Q&As. And we were like, I want to ask people questions. And so we just thought, hell, for the hell of it, like, let's throw it up. And people are really, really vibing, and it's being one of our most popular events so far. And for anyone interested in doing stand-up, we're doing a free workshop hosted by Matt Storer, who is an incredible comic. And if you've seen his stuff on TikTok, he's jumped up to like 80,000 in the last 2 months. He is going to be so big you would not believe. Like, Australia's Bo Burnham, he's amazing. So he's doing a free workshop for anyone just wanting to learn a little bit about how to write jokes, how to be a bit funnier, and it's so applicable to everyone.
Yeah, nice.
Very cool. So you sound very, very enthusiastic about it, and it's rubbing off on us. But how can people get tickets for these shows?
So you can check it out, www.wacomedyweek.com. That's the full program. You'll be able to see it all. You can follow us on all the socials. All the events are up now. So if you guys have any individual questions, you can message us or the page. We'll be doing a variety of giveaways through select incredible Perth podcast.
That leads us to our next thing. We've got 2 tickets to give away. We'll be giving them away on our Instagram account. It'll be a matter of just making sure that you're following us, liking the post, and then tagging your mate on the post for your chance to go in the running to win 2 tickets to go to the shows.
Oh, yeah.
Great. I really appreciate it, boys. If there's any other questions you could possibly have, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to have a well-earned beer.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining us, Cole.
Love your work.
Thanks, boys.
Cheers. How good's Cole?
Oh, mate, the best.
What an absolute legend. He's got real Jimmy Fallon energies.
Yep.
Which we absolutely appreciate. And yeah, we're going to have the competition on our Instagram page.
Yes, very exciting. So we got free ticks, which who doesn't want free ticks?
Mate, we're like Oprah here. Give them free season
free
tickets, free fucking comedy week tickets. It's all happening here.
It's all going off. If you look under your chair right now.
No fucking way.
Yeah,
right.
Do it. Probably gum, mainly gum, but you can have as much of that as you want.
Yeah, we've had a PI following around all the listeners, and we're going to give you all tickets. So you should be finding them right about now.
Fantastic. The next comedian that we have joining us here on the MacPack podcast is Frankie Rowsthorn.
Yes. Very funny lady.
Frankie is a hilarious comedian who kicked things off when she was very young, and she corrects Joe nice and early on about how old she was when she started, which was arguably my favourite part about this whole podcast. She also happens to be Peter Rowsthorn's daughter.
Who's Peter Rowsthorn?
Don't give me that. Peter Rowsthorn is from Kath and Kim. He plays Brett, which is Kath's husband. Kath's the old bird. Kim's husband. Kim's husband in Kath and Kim.
Yeah.
Frankie was an absolute legend. Take it away, Frankie. Alrighty, boys. Obviously, we just had Colin on the phone.
Yes,
Very
sir.
excited to also now welcome to the MacPack podcast Frankie Rowsthorn, who is a new, young, up-and-coming comedian who is also going to be performing at the WA Comedy Festival. Frankie, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic.
So good to be here on the Mac Pack. Where does that name come from?
Our surname is McKenna, so we just sort of
Oh, nice. Okay, right. Yeah. Okay,
shortened it, tightened it, and that gave us MacPack.
There you go.
Cool.
So our first question for you, Frank, is you obviously started comedy at 17, and we wanted to ask you, what was that like
16.
starting?
Hello.
We got false information.
Yeah.
We're blaming Colin
Colin's
for
been
that.
feeding us lies.
Colin doesn't know shit about me.
16, that's even
Colin
more
probably didn't-
impressive.
Yeah, Colin probably didn't. Actually, no, I met Colin maybe when I was... Actually, no, I saw Colin when I was 14 at a gig, and then I was like, oh, cool, this is fun, this looks awesome. Yeah, but he really didn't see me till I was 17 again doing... but yeah, I started doing the clubs, not the club, like the open mics in Fremantle. I only ever did those when I was like in year 11, being like, oh, I'll try this out. But yeah, I kind of only really... It became kind of real like when I turned 18.
Yes.
Because I was actually allowed in clubs pretty much. So
Yeah, it makes it a lot easier to, perform there when you are allowed there.
yeah, that's definitely it.
What was the inspiration for why you wanted to do that off the top?
Well, I don't know. I just feel like it was always something in my head. My daddy's a comedian, so I am a nepotism baby, sure, in certain ways. But I've always loved it. I've always found an identity. I've related to female comedians a lot. I loved SNL growing up and thinking about sketch comedy and I looked up to a lot of really funny women on television, and I was like, I really want to do stand up. It's such a different art form. I've always been in the arts. I've always loved doing drama and improv classes, but there was something about stand up that was just so cool. It's a bit and it's so solo as well. and you don't have to work with other actors and stuff, which is probably the best part about it. There are weird people in stand-up. It's like, who cares? You're doing your bit, then you leave.
Yeah, that's
and
true.
it's just cool, and not many other people can do it. Like, people in the arts are like, oh, I do that, this and this and that, but like, can you do stand-up?
Yeah.
Not many people can.
It's a very unique skill set.
I do love it. I love it. Yeah, it's very unique, yeah.
There you go. You just touched on then, like, your inspirations through other female comedians. Who is your favourite female comedian?
Well, it's actually, it always goes, I love Becky Lucas.
Yeah, nice.
Becky Lucas is great. I love a lot of, my intro to comedy, really, my first attraction to comedy was sketch comedy. I love a lot of the American, like Kristen Wiig and Tina Fey and Amy Poehler. They're like, Tina Fey's writing on 30 Rock, Amy Poehler's writing, Parks and Rec. Oh my gosh, anything that Kristen Wiig does. But Kate McKinnon was like my first sort of, oh my God, like girl crush, I want to be her so bad. Kate McKinnon she did it like her Hillary Clinton on SNL, and she was the first time I'd ever looked at something and was like, okay, I want to do that exactly. And she's incredible. Yeah, but I'm not. But the more that I'm in comedy, the more I learn about other female comics, which is great because obviously they don't get as much, traction. There isn't many famous female comedians as there are male, so you kind of have to look for it if you want to get some inspiration. Sandra Bernhardt's a great one as well. She's really funny. She's quite old school, but she's good. Yeah, nice. This goes on. It's great.
And so obviously you're doing the Funniest Femmes Gala.
How
fantastic is it to see that like so many women are now getting the recognition they deserve in the comedy landscape?
Oh, it's great. It's really good. I have so many good lady friends in it. It's definitely, I understand why it's super intimidating for this whole politics thing about women aren't as funny as men. And I don't think that's true. I think women lack a confidence because men take up so much space conversationally. Like everyone's like, oh, were you a class clown? It's like I would have been burnt to the stake if I ever tried to make a joke during class. I went to it's like it can be so intimidating to make a joke in front of guys because it's like you might fully just get like put down for it. So I understand why a lot of women hesitate, but most of the funniest women that I know aren't comedians, even though I do know lots of fun.
Shout out to all the female comedians.
Everyone's great. I love them, very supportive. It is so good to see it, and especially there isn't many in Perth. Like you show up to a gig, you're lucky to see more than two, or more than one sometimes. So it'll be really nice. It is the whole female lineup ones are great because it's like, it feels very supportive. And then you have your kind of audience that goes there. They're there to be supportive for you as well. And that's great. Yeah, it's super good.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good job. Frankie, so I have seen you perform at the Perth Comedy Club. And I was very impressed with, how you went, especially for someone so young. There was one thing you talked about I wanted you to expand on a little bit more, and I did read about this in the news. What happened with you and a pretty big personality, I'd say. Lloyd Rainier, he was. Yeah,
who was it?
Yeah, he's definitely a personality for sure.
Yeah. So what happened there?
Well, okay, so I do a joke about Lloyd Rainier, and well, actually, it was originally a joke just about how I asked a guy to the school ball in year 12, and he said no. And then the whole thing was like, oh, I don't care. He hasn't seen his cat for a while, but I don't give a shit. And that was originally the first joke. Like I didn't even mention Lloyd Rainier until someone told me like, hey, you should say Lloyd Rainier. I was like, who's that? And they told me, because I'm not even from Perth originally. Like you wouldn't know that if you weren't from Perth. Because it's like such a, and maybe you would, but not really anymore. People are like, okay. And then they told me about it. I was like, hey, yeah, I do know about that case. Didn't know his name. Sure. Then I started using that. I was like, just ask Lloyd Rainier. And because it is a local reference.
Yeah.
And Perth goes crazy for that, Perth reference stuff. It's like, it was like a suburb. It's like going, ooh, Midland.
Yeah, people go nuts.
Like it was literally the same thing. And so I was using that for a bit. I was kind of one of my few openers. And then I did it during Fringe, and this year's Fringe, this past Fringe, has been like, because the borders were closed, it was kind of like the same 8 comedians in Perth doing every gig. So a lot of people saw the same people over and over again if you went to comedy shows. But I just could not believe that this happened. But I did my joke, and then people were a bit like weird. There was kind of not many people in this audience, and I heard some like oohs or whatever, and I was like, that's odd. I wonder why their reactions like that. I get off stage, and then someone comes up to me, and they're like, that man that just walked out. I was like, I didn't see anyone walk out. But okay, because the lighting in there was awful. I could not see anyone in there. She was like, that was Lloyd Rainey and his family. I was like, oh, okay, wow. Fully just was freaking out. Fully was, and then she goes, oh, it's okay. I told him that I've never seen you do that joke before. I was like, what? Like, okay. He just wants you to write. He wants you to write an apology. And I immediately was like, oh, of course it is. I should do that. And then I thought about it later. I was like, actually, fuck that. I don't need to do that.
Yeah, no, not at all.
What? Like, it's literally. I mean, I hate to be this person, but free speech. Yeah. So I just didn't apologize, and then I look on Perth, a Fringe Hub thing and the reviews it was a variety show thing because I don't even have a solo show. Don't even have a solo show to do. So they were leaving all these comments that were clearly like all lawyer friends of him.
Oh, right, right.
Usually like Fringe reviews are just like a shit emoji, and they're leaving like paragraphs of like, on this date at this time, Frankie Rowsthorn said this exactly, and he got up and walked out. This is a disgrace. Like, when I was reading this, like, no one feels this strongly about Lloyd Rainey unless you're terrified of Lloyd Rainey for some reason. So it was just all this stuff slandering me, and the next thing I know, like, the West is calling me. They want to get an interview. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Any publicity is good publicity. Oh my gosh, this is great. But then they were telling me not to talk about it at all. So my dad does like a little interview for me for the West, talking on my behalf because they're going to run the story anyway, and they're probably just going to take Lloyd's point of view of just like, she saw me in the audience and said those jokes off the cuff. I was like, I wish I was brave enough to do that. Oh my god! Thank you for thinking so highly of my crowd work. Not there yet. It was just and then it was just crazy for a little bit. Everyone was like, how are you? I'm like, it's fine. It was kind of, at least I didn't say the N-word or something. At least I didn't, oh my God, I would be mortified. I literally like roasted a murderer. Like, what is it? It's such good publicity. Are you kidding? Like ripping up the streets with like, doing people justice. and he's not like a famous, it's not Ivan Milat or something. Like, this guy has a lot of money and power, but it's sort of just a Perth thing, really.
Yeah, exactly.
And
there's relatable things in Perth, and then there's like very specific relatable things in Perth when you've got Lloyd sitting in the front row.
Yeah, oh my gosh. It's it feels like such a small city sometimes. Like, what the hell is he doing in a comedy show? But like, he's like O.J. Simpson. Like, do you think people aren't going to tell a joke about you? Maybe. Oh my god! He said it was the worst night of his life in like 15 years.
Oh, I reckon think of one.
He literally implied that it was the worst thing to happen to him since his wife was murdered. I'm like, that is insane. Oh my god. But good for him. I think he liked his name. He liked his name in the paper for sure.
Yeah,
so I gave him that. But then the last thing I heard was, I got a lawyer from a letter from his lawyer, and they were just like, don't do the joke anymore and write us an apology or else, whatever.
Yeah, the rest.
I was like, okay. And for a while I stopped doing the joke, but sometimes I still do it. I'm trying not to anymore. My mum's like, Frankie, don't. Like, what if he actually finds out? But then it's crazy not to talk about it, though. I mean, when I move away, I'll try and write more bits about it because it's just an insane story.
Yeah,
like, I'm literally an 18. Oh, I mean, I was actually, no, I just turned 19 at the time, and it would have been like, what are you trying to make me out to be? Like, that I have some kind of power over you?
Yeah.
It was so odd. But yeah, it was kind of fun. It was funny. It was a cool little first controversy for sure. And when I tell other comics of the story when they're from out of town, they're like, wow, That's crazy. It is a cool story.
100%. You've already
Thanks, Lloyd.
You've already touched on it a little bit. Dad jokes are usually like a not funny thing, but your dad's actually a comedian. So what's it like growing up with your dad being Peter Rowsthorn?
Oh, very funny. Like it was. People have asked a lot, but he is very funny, and it is. I'm very lucky that I didn't get shitty dad jokes growing up, for sure. He did hit us, but that's whatever. No, kidding.
You can have one or the other,
as long
I
as
think.
you get that Kath and Kim money, who cares? Swing away. Yeah, it was incredible. And then it is kind of how I've gotten my first interest in it, or maybe got a little kind of behind the scenes look in a way. And, he doesn't write any of my jokes or anything. He just kind of he said to me like, oh, I think you've had something in you since you were really young, that none of your siblings have really shown. I think you could probably do stand up and go into comedy because you're really funny. And I don't know, I can't even remember when I first, because I knew I wanted to go into the arts. I mean, I wanted to be a forensic scientist for a while, but I can't do maths. So I was just like, no, not going to do that.
You would have seen Lloyd then probably as well.
Yeah, I know. I would have seen Lloyd. Oh my gosh. So I was just, for as long as I can remember, I've wanted to do it. But it was just always a thing of like, I'm going to do it eventually. And then I was always putting it off. And he was like, just do it. Like, you're never going to start it unless you start now or at some point. And then one night he was driving me home from school and he was like, do it. I was like, okay, fine. I'll do it tonight then. I'll do it tonight. Thursday night, Sail and Anchor does their overnight nights. And then he was like, really? Wow. Okay, really? He couldn't really believe it. And I was like, yeah. And then I went down there and did some weird puberty-based material, which I still do because everyone's gone through puberty. And I talked about my parents and stuff like that, and it was okay. It was fine. And I just kept doing it, and I kind of got into a rhythm of being like, this is something I feel very alive doing, and like most people do when they feel it, but when they do it. But I kept wanting to go back to it. That was the thing. Even when I did shit, I still wanted to try again, which is not something I usually do. Failing just deters me from most things, and I'll never try again. My confidence gets pretty whacked around pretty easily.
Yeah.
But then for this one, I was always like, actually, no, I want to go back and make it better.
Yeah.
So I think that was cool. Like when I was like, anyway, you asked me about my dad. I'm so sorry. But yeah, he's funny. It was cool to grow up with a famous dad, I guess.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. And what should people expect when they come to see you at the WA Comedy Festival?
Oh, I still talk about my family quite a bit. I'm kind of still finding where my jokes are at the moment. I'm doing whatever I find is funny. I won't do anything too sexual or do anything too racy or sexist or racist. I don't know. I'm pretty PC as it comes, but I guess I like relating to everyone of all ages. I don't want to limit myself to just like a women audience or just performing to the boys or just performing to girls my age. I hope that my jokes will always be funny to everyone. So pretty diverse stuff, I'll say that.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Bravo.
Universal topics.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, well, we're very excited for what the future has in store for you, and we're very excited to have people come and see you at the WA
Right, thanks
Comedy
so much
Week.
for chatting, guys.
No worries. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
Too good. Cheers, Frankie.
See ya. Bye.
How good is Frankie?
Frankie's the best.
Fantastic, yeah.
Absolute legend. Not many people go down the Lloyd Rainey path.
No.
But mad courage for doing so. Even more so I know she said she didn't see him, but imagine if she did and still win it.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Huge
Yeah,
courage.
she says
Yeah.
she didn't.
Yeah.
But you never know.
I love how the person who's the manager who ever spoke to her was like, oh, I'll help her out. Be like, oh, she doesn't usually say that, which makes it way worse. In my opinion.
Yeah, it's like she saw you walk in
would be good.
and went, you know what? Tonight's the night we unleash on some Lloyd Rainey gear.
Yeah.
Boys, the next fantastic comedian we got the pleasure of speaking to was Joe White.
Yes, a massive name.
Massive name who mixes with some massive figures. Joe's previously been on Australia's Got Talent.
Yep.
And as he mentions in this next chat, he's mixed with some huge legends.
I know, yeah.
Carl Barron, who's fantastic in Australia.
Yep.
Trevor Noah, who's fantastic in the world.
Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey, who's fantastic in the world. In particular, Hollywood. And he's just like the most humble dude I've spoken to, I reckon, in a long, long time.
Very, very.
You don't hang out in these circles and carry on the way in which Joe White does.
Yes.
Unless you're as successful as this young man is. Take it away, Joe. Alrighty, boys. Last but not least, we're incredibly excited to welcome Joe White to the show. Joe, how are you, mate?
Good, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on board.
Yeah, so our first question is, obviously you grew up, you're from Ethiopia. What was it like there, and is there much comedy in Ethiopian culture?
Oh, mate, it's thriving, you know?
Yeah.
But we have to stop. We have to stop because of the civil war, but other than that, it's going great.
What's it like compared to Australian comedy?
Comedy in Ethiopia is, from what I see and what I hear, it's mainly in our native tongue, Amharic. So it's very rarely.
Yep.
I don't think there's anyone that does it in English there.
Okay.
But I was I'm Ethiopian, but my parents fled Ethiopia and had me in Sudan, and then at a refugee camp, and then I went from Sudan to Australia when I was 11 years old. So I've never been to Ethiopia, but I am Ethiopian.
Oh, right.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I've never lived in Ethiopia, but there's no English scene from what I like, because I'm trying to, I get invited to come to Ethiopia and do comedy, but I'm like, man, how many of you are going to get my sense of humor?
Yeah,
It's very
true.
westernized,
Yeah.
Like because in Australia we do a lot of self-deprecating humor. You know what I mean? It's like everyone takes the piss out of everyone, and you take the piss out of yourself.
Yep.
Everyone shit thinks that's the attitude,
Yeah.
Where in Ethiopia, it's like they're very proud. We're very proud people, man. The moment you make fun of Ethiopia, like I do this joke about Ethiopian Airlines and how like the safety rate is high because only 80% take off, and then I go the last time an Ethiopian airliner was in a crash, it was hit by a car, right? And then the Ethiopians, they're like, yo, we don't like that. We're waiting for you at the airport. There's going to be a protest. So I don't know, man. I don't know how they're going to get my sense of humor.
So when did you move to Australia?
98.
Yeah, okay, right.
Yeah.
Unreal.
Yeah.
Cool.
Were you guys born then or not?
I was born in
just.
1998.
Yeah. Okay, cool. As soon as I got here, you were born.
There you go. So are there any big Ethiopian or Sudanese comedians that you look up to like have the grassroots back there, or are there more Aussie comedians that you aspire from?
Trevor Noah is who I, in the beginning when I started comedy, that's who I watched and was inspired by. He's got like a cool story of, coming from a South African background, bit of struggle, talks about his upbringing, his family, talks about his mom, talks about, I guess, the cultural clashes, talks about, a lot of relevant and current topics, and I really like that. I really like his style as well, his delivery, how he doesn't swear on stage. I like the fact that he looks the part as well. Everyone thinks comics have to look poor and dress down, and I'm like, no, I like to dress up. I like to look good, and do jokes that doesn't necessarily have swear words and all that shit. But if I swearing, it's in the moment, and it is what it is. But like a lot of my comedy, you could bring your grandma to. It's cool.
Yeah, that's fantastic. You've been compared to Trevor Noah. We've seen a few articles that have popped up. How does that sit with you?
Oh man, it's obviously an absolute honor, because that's someone you look after. I've also been called the Black Carl Barron. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah, right.
I'll take that.
Yeah. So when I went to America, I actually, when I was in Montreal, I met Trevor Noah.
Oh, fantastic.
Really cool.
That's sick.
Yeah, I met him at Just for Laughs. Yeah, I also met Jim Carrey. It was pretty cool.
That's
very
huge.
cool.
Yeah, Trevor Noah is really tall in real life. Man. I don't know if you guys saw him in real life, but
No, never.
he's pretty tall, man. I was like, wow, how are you tall? Like, good looking, funny, got lots of money. I'm like, man,
living the
I felt
dream.
bad about myself.
He doesn't look that tall when you see him either on stage or even when he's doing his talk show. He doesn't look tall by any means.
funny. He's 6 foot something. I'm
Yeah,
telling you.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. I guess the only time I ever
Yeah.
see him, he's either sitting down or alone on stage.
Yeah, that's true.
That's a good show.
When he comes to Perth, you should go see him at the arena. He's
Yeah,
anyway,
yeah,
another
yeah,
person to be
certainly,
plugging me, not Trevor Noah. You know,
Yeah. His book's also fantastic.
WA Comedy Week.
Have you-
He
have
doesn't need me to plug him.
Have you read Trevor's book?
Yeah, I have in
Yeah.
like 2 days.
It's fantastic, hey? It's unreal.
Funny. Oh mate, there was laughs everywhere.
So we've talked about
Very
some
good.
of your highs, obviously meeting some of your idols and stuff, but we'd love to ask this question to comedians. What is the worst crowd you've ever performed in front of?
New Zealand.
Yes. The whole place.
All of them.
The whole of New Zealand.
And why is
Mainly
that?
because it was my fault.
Why
So
is that?
I was touring with Omid Jalili like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you know Omid. He's pretty big. He was in like the Gladiator with Russell Crowe.
Oh, yeah.
He was in The Mummy, like that funny Arab guy that travels with Brendan Fraser and his wife.
Yeah,
Yeah. So he performs for the King and the Queen. Just to give you an idea, if you don't know who he is. So he toured Australia and New Zealand, and I got the opportunity to be his opening act. So we went around Australia and New Zealand, and every night we were in a different city around Australia. So it was a hectic schedule, and then we left Australia and we went to Auckland to do a show there. But for whatever reason, I must have had like a brain fart. I thought I was still in Australia, right? I went through customs and everything, but I still thought I was in Australia. And I'm like 500 people, and I'm performing to them like I'm in Australia, and I completely forgot. And they were laughing through the whole thing because they thought it was part of my act. I go to this guy, "What's your name?" He's like, "Atua." I'm like, "That's not very Aussie, is it?" I'm laughing, they're laughing. You know, I'm like, Australia is such a great country. You know, I migrated here. Like over 20 years ago, and we love it here, you know, it just kept going, and then they're laughing, but eventually one of them goes, "Oi, you are not in Australia." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "You're not in Australia." And then I was like, "Oh my God." On stage, I froze, and I had this big smile on my face. Telling you, if I was white, you'll see me go red, right? But because I'm black, you couldn't see the black. I was just like smiling, and I was like, "Oh man." And then I had to win them back, and they were just like laughing, and this girl was like, "You're not winning, are you?" I was like, "Who are you? My ex-girlfriend? Be quiet." And then I go, "Don't worry, guys, I'm just a warm-up act." And then the guy goes, "I don't feel very warmed up." I was like, "Don't worry, I'll see you in the bathroom when we finish warming you up." I was so nervous, mate. It was crazy. And then someone messaged me, and he goes, "As an East African, I thought your act sucked, right?" There was no middle ground. You either liked me or you didn't. There was no middle ground. And then I was so confused because he was Indian, you know. And then I was like, "Oh, wait a minute! Like there's Indians in Kenya," so I assumed. And I just said, "Look, as an East African, I think your feedback sucks."
There you go. So
New Zealand.
obviously you're on Australia's Got Talent as well. But how did your career and like your material change from before you're on AGT to compared to after?
Oh man, I write about my life experiences. You know, like my comedy comes from my everyday experiences. So I go out and I do shit, and you know, every year man, there's something different happening in my life.
Yeah.
You know? So this year's show will be mainly about my travels to America, because I just got back from 3 months of doing shows around America.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot about that, the difference between there and here, you know, how they perceived me as a black Australian Ethiopian now in America with this accent, you know, and they're trying to work out, did you cross the border or did you fly here, you know? I'm like, oh. You know, it was funny, man. So I talk a lot about America. Before AGT, a lot of my material was obviously just about you know, just my everyday life in Australia. To this day, I still talk about, you know, my experiences coming to this country and what it was like back in Sudan. You know,
Yep.
being homeless on the streets of Sudan, and my amazing mum. You know, what it's like for her raising 6 kids there, and then coming here and realizing they're Centrelink and that she gets free money from the government. She's like, "What is this?" Talk a lot of. I still do stuff about that, you know, because my mum's in my life every day. I guess I've got content about her new stuff. But yeah, just the everyday stuff that happens to me. That's what my comedy is about.
Yeah, fantastic. And is there any other comedians that are playing at the WA Comedy Week that you would recommend to others to listen to or go down and see?
Mate, definitely just come and see this guy called Joe White. He's really funny. And show out. Don't worry about the rest. Right? When his show sells out,
Oh, we love
when his show
that.
sells out, then you can go into the other ones, and
So
I'll tell you which
finally,
one.
an honest recommendation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're sick and seeing everyone else pumping each other's tyres up. We like that. Joe White. Vote 1, Joe White.
That's it. Joe White and Friends. Come see that one. Where I do 50 minutes. And then there's another one that I'm hosting, but don't worry about that one. Come to mine first, sell that one out. And then when that one sells out, I'll tell you to go to the other one. But just in general, WA Comedy Week is it's going to be amazing. It's the first time they're doing that. 7 days of, local talents and also ex-WA talents just giving you their best. So definitely recommend everyone come out.
No, it should be fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, Joe.
Yeah, thanks for calling me, guys. Appreciate you having me on.
Too easy. Thank you, mate.
Our pleasure.
See you, mate. Bye.
That was fantastic, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah, no stress, man. Thanks for having me on, eh?
No, that was sick.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
How did you end up meeting Trevor Noah? Run us through that.
Oh, I was at JFL. I had the industry pass, and so we were there was only like 300 of us in this room.
Yeah.
And Trevor Noah was one of the speakers there. So he was talking about his book and his life and everything. So I got to hear his story in person. And then afterwards, when he finished, people were just walking up saying hello and congratulating, introducing themselves and stuff. And then and also that was on one occasion. And then on the second occasion, I didn't meet him, but I was like 5 foot away from him, and it was an awards night. So he received Comedian of the Year, and then Ali Wong was there. She received Breakout Comedian of the Year.
Yep.
And then Jim Carrey was there, and he received the Generation Comedian of the Year.
Yes.
So, just in this intimate setting, I think it was Hyatt Hotel or something in Montreal.
Yep.
And it was just 2 weeks of like madness. Well, actually a month of madness, just partying. It was it's pretty cool, and comedy.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
I met Carl Barron was at one of these parties as well, and I'm just there standing next to him, and his manager introduced me, and he goes, "Oh, hey man, no one really knows him there."
Yeah, that's so true.
It was crazy, I'm there like, this guy does arenas in Australia, and how come no one is like around him, like going, "Hey, Carl, how are you?" Oh, I'm just the only one next to him, but I'm playing it cool, That seemed like a weirdo.
Introducing yourself.
Like, hey,
what was
man.
your name again?
Yeah. I said, "Oh, hey, Carl, nice to meet you." And he goes, "Oh, you from Australia?" I go, "Yeah, you too, eh?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm sick, man." Yeah.
Oh, that's unreal.
Inside, I'm like a 9-year-old excited girl who just saw Santa for the first time, and I'm like, it's Carl Barron.
Oh, that's fantastic. Too good. All right, thanks so much for joining us, man.
Yeah, no worries, boys. Have an awesome night. Eh?
Yeah, you too, man. Cheers. Bye-bye. Alrighty, boys. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit next to the three of you.
Yes, and even more of a pleasure to dial into our 3 guests.
100%. Couple of legends of WA Comedy Week joining us here on the MacPack podcast. We can't thank them enough for their involvement.
Yes, and if you want tickets, we'll be giving them away on our Instagram. Enter our competition.
Yeah, just head to the MacPack podcast on Instagram.
And if you want to actually support them and buy tickets yourself, where can they go, Jay?
They go to wacomedyweek.com.au.
That's right.
Yep, or just .com.
Oh, no, AU.
I don't think so. I think we got a .com.
Oh,
We got to go out.
we got a .com.
Yeah, ooh, yeah.
WAComedyweek.com.
We like that. Boys, I'm pretty keen to go down as well.
Yes, we will definitely be there.
So if you buy tickets, there's a fair chance you'll see us down there as well, which will be incredibly exciting for you guys.
There you go.
And incredibly exciting for us to mix and mingle with a couple of the absolute legends from WA Comedy Week. Boys, it's been an absolute pleasure until we do this time next week.
Doing this again this next week.
Yeah, we got more. Not quite this, but the three of us will sit down once again for fuck knows how many weeks we've been doing this.
Yeah, lots. Yeah.
Heaps and heaps and heaps. Until we do this then, stay safe, stay blessed, and always remember to
Go give your mum a hug.
it's chuffing out, but not forever.